Hey guys, I don't know if you have ever been like me, where you wonder what the heck the concept of like God's weightiness and his glory, like why is it have like a weightiness connotation to it? I don't know if you've ever heard that the Hebrew word of glory actually is like weight or like heaviness. And I've always been like, what's up with that? That doesn't super make a ton of sense. And I was just thinking and reading this morning in Deuteronomy 1, and I thought it gave like such a really cool little nugget that I thought I'd share with you guys. Basically, God's people are moving to a new phase of their journey, and usually when God moves them, He helps them be reminded of like what He's done, and He doesn't just like remind them what He has done in their lifetime, but He reminds them not only in their lifetime of what they've experienced, but also like He pegs it like tent pegs all the way down through all the generations. And so if you look at Deuteronomy 1:8, we'll back up a little bit, but it says, God's telling them, you have stayed long enough in this mountain, turn and take your journey and go to the hill country. And he goes on in verse 8, he says, I have set the land before you. Go and take possession of the land that the Lord swore to your fathers, to Abraham. There's those tent pegs of like generational reminders of what God has done. To Abraham, to Isaac, and Jacob. And so these people, as they're moving forward, they're being reminded of God's faithfulness throughout the generations too. And verse 9 says, at that time, this is Moses, he says, at that time I said to you, I'm not able to bear you by myself. The Lord your God has multiplied you, and behold, you are today as numerous as the stars of heaven. That phrase, that like sets up a red flag of like, oh my gosh, that's hitting some of the promises that God has given his people of multiplying offspring as numerous as the stars of heaven. And here they are. Here's the people. They have multiplied so much that Moses is like, dudes, I cannot handle you guys. You're too much to handle. And it's just so interesting to hear that language of I cannot bear you by myself, and have it being talked about in the context of God's promises and future journeys with him. And that's what made me think of the weightiness of God's glory. And so if you hear that like I cannot bear you, but then also God's weightiness of his glory, it made me think about how when God's glory is unleashed, it truly is, just like we're seeing here with his promises that are fulfilled. It is weighty. And if it was completely unleashed, can you just imagine how like weighty it would be? Because Moses is sitting here saying, you guys have done what God has promised. You have multiplied today as numerous as the stars of heaven, which was promised before, and you guys are too much to bear. And I just thought that it was so cool to think that God's promises really are, they're heavy in a really good but like uncontainable way for us. Because we don't have big enough hands to hold it. We don't have enough power and strength and holiness that God has to actually hold the weight of his glory. So I thought that was cool to share with you guys today, and I hope you're doing well, and we send our love and hugs. Dan says bye.